Hey everyone, Reflected here, and today I want to show you how to start the DCS F-4E Phantom using real-life procedures. If you already subscribed to my channel, you know two things about me for sure. One, I love old analog hands-on jets, so the Phantom is exactly my kind of airplane. The second is that I love flying DCS simulating real-life procedures. That's why I started making campaigns. Every jet can be started quick and dirty within a few minutes, but in DCS we have study level modules. Every system, switch and knob is modeled, so why not make the most of it and learn about these jets that we love so much. The Phantom can be started using a cartridge or an external ground power unit, also known as a -60. Cartridge starts are not exactly the safest option. It can cause serious fires if you draw the short straw. They're mostly used in scramble situations. So today we're gonna look at the safer and more standard startup using a ground power unit. None of the hoses or cables should be connected just yet. So here we are in the state-of-the-art cockpit, the best looking one I've ever seen in a flight sim. My hat's off to Heatblur for doing such a terrific job with this one. Another highly immersive feature is the helmet that you can put on and take off. So let's start by putting it on, shall we? So first we need to sweep around the cockpit and see if every switch is in the correct position, ready for engine start. They always are in DCS, but it's good to build muscle memories, because you can never trust the pilot who flew the jet before you. Before electric power. Before we ask for the ground power, there are a few things to verify, otherwise they can cause problems when the power comes on. Lower ejection seat handle guard up, so the seat is not armed. It's not modeled at the moment. Generator switches off, so in the middle position. ALE 40 flare switch to normal. Internal wing dump, normal. Both throttles off. External stores emergency jettison, off. Make sure it's not pressed in, not even a little bit. Gear handle down and pressed in. Missile jettison off. Armament switches safe, including the armament safety override button back here. Pitot heat off. Then we check the battery and verify the battery relay closure by turning on the engine master switches and checking for proper gear, slats and flaps indication. Okay, let's turn the engine master switches back off. Formation lights off. Emergency attitude reference system circuit breaker in. Radio off. Reference system selector standby. You only turn it to norm once the INS alignment is complete. You install the gun camera magazine and stow the dust cover. Otherwise, nobody will believe you that you bagged the MiG-17 over Thud Ridge. This is not implemented yet. It will be shortly after the release. Alright, now we can ask the ground crew to connect the ground power. In order to let the cart power up the jet, your Wizzo needs to flip the ground power switch to on in the back seat, which gesture does automatically. Then you switch the generator switches to external to allow it to power up the systems. Now we can verify the transformer rectifiers. With the generator set to EXT and the engine master switches off, we should be getting proper gear slats and flaps indication if both TRs are working. Alright, we can now go ahead and perform the before engine start checks. Before engine start. First, you adjust the pedals, the leg restraints, or basically you make yourself comfortable in your flight sim chair. You can also adjust the seat height using this switch here. You never know if it was Vizzini or Physic flying the jet before you. I recommend fully raising it for takeoffs and landings, otherwise the top of the combining glass should be at around eye level. Now let's sweep around the cockpit from left to right. You set the auxiliary armament panel. Gyro switch to norm, oral tone control to low. This is your AIM 9 tone, don't forget to turn it back up as you fence in. And then you make sure the boarding steps indicator is protruding, meaning the steps are raised. Slats override switch to norm, guard closed, otherwise your leading edge slats won't open. Intercom panel set to norm, hot mic, so you can hear each other with your Wizzo. ALE40 flare switch to normal. Set the fuel control panel, transfer and dump switches to normal. Aerial refueling door closed. Refuel all tanks. External transfer either off if you have no tanks, or outboard if you have drop tanks on your wings. If you have a centerline tank, never set it to center while on the ground. As you lift off the ground and there's no more weight on the wheels, the centerline tank would pressurize immediately, and if there's a leak that went unnoticed, it can contribute to a tank fire. Only set it to center after getting airborne. On the ground, leave it in the off position. Interestingly, this warning is in the 1979-1, but they took it out from the 1984 one. Check all stabbogs are off. Then we test the boost pumps. Flip and hold the check switches and verify that the boost pump pressure indicator jumps to around 30.5 psi. Make sure the switch returns to normal when released, then repeat with the other one. Set your VOR ILS panel, then test it. If you selected an ILS frequency, the marker beacon light will illuminate, and if there is a valid VOR signal, ILS VOR is selected on the HSI, and the course is set to 315 degrees, then your course deviation indicator on the HSI will move to center plus minus 4 degrees. Verify that your flaps slat switch corresponds to the actual position of the flaps, so in our case, it's up. Check the emergency flap handle is fully forward, and verify the drag chute control handle is down and secure. Speed brake switch in. Basically, we want to make sure we don't have any sudden and unwanted control movements when the engine starts and you get some hydraulic pressure, because it may cause injuries if somebody is in the wrong place at the wrong time. Verify the antenna is set to upper. Any skid may malfunction due to electromagnetic interference when the lower antenna is selected, and it may also interfere with the nose wheel steering. A reminder why you need to put your phones in flight mode when you're flying, huh? Anti-ice, normal. Check the anti-skid. It's basically your ABS. When you roll fast, you want it on so that your wheels don't lock up. When you roll slow, you want it off to have maximum braking power. Turn it on and verify the light goes out. Then squeeze the emergency pedal switch on your stick and verify the light comes on, meaning the anti-skid disengages. Release the pedal, the light goes off, then flip the switch off, light comes on. Verify the aileron rudder interconnect, or ARI, CB is in. Landing taxi lights off. Flap slats and gear indicators correct. Emergency brake handle in. Canopy jettison handle forward. Check that your armament switches are safe. Reset your G meter. Wind and set the clock. Check the gun sight and adjust the brightness. Check your ADI. Rotate the pitch trim knob to -10 and +5 degrees to check the travel, then align it with the horizon. Align your emergency attitude indicator. Then set your bearing distance selector as desired. Fire warning lights, test. Check the fuel quantity, then hold the feed tank check switch and check the quantity in the feed tank. Verify the hook handle is fully up. You don't want it to inadvertently drop during taxi. You set the TechAN as required, but keep it off for now. Set your comms panel as required. TR plus G, transmit plus guard. Channel selected. Emergency vent knob in. Rain removal off. Pitot heat check. Turn it on and let the crew chief verify that it gets warm, and then turn it off.
Roger. Pitot is ready for the buns, sir.
defog foot heat as required. Temperature set. In the aft position, when foot heat is selected, 90% of the air is blown onto the pilot from vents all around the cockpit. When the lever is moved forward and defog is selected, 80% of the air is blown onto the windshield, and the temperature control knob's range also goes up, blowing much hotter air than in the foot heat position. Check your IFF is off, then set up the cockpit lights over here. Hold this switch to test your warning lights. Make sure they all work, so if they're off in flight, it means that there's no problem and it's not just a faulty light. Set your auto stall warning volume here. This will control the AOA indication tones. I'd recommend lowering it to about 10 to 20% and work your way up from there. Back here you can set your exterior lights. Sweep complete. Now we check the oxygen supply gauge for sufficient quantity, then turn on and check your oxygen system. Normal, normal, on. Light off. Press the test button, verify the needle drops to 0 without getting stuck, and check the oxygen low and master caution light illuminate when the needle reaches 1. Test your mask and make sure it works. It's pretty cool that in the test position, Heatblur added a breathing sound effect. Very immersive. Turn on and test your raw, radar, homing, and warning gear, then turn it off. Check and test the eject light. If you press it, the light in both cockpits should illuminate, indicating it's time to eject in case the intercom is in-up. Engine start. Okay, the cockpit is all set up. We're ready to actually start the engines. The crew chief flips the CNI, communication, navigation, and identification systems switch to on in the left wheel well. From here, you must start your engines within 10 minutes, otherwise the CNI will overheat without cooling, and you have to wait 50 minutes before you can continue. Check fore and aft area is clear, fire guard posted, throttles are off. Then ask the crew chief to connect the air supply to the right engine.
Roger. Connected it on the right.
You turn on the right engine master switch here, then signal the crew chief to start the airflow. At 10% RPM, never below that, press and hold the ignition button on the throttle and move the throttle not to idle, but to about 50%. And snap it back to idle. This is to verify the throttle is rigged correctly and fuel flow won't be accidentally shut off when moving it to idle. When light off occurs, so the EGT jumps and RPM starts to rise, you can release the ignition button. Okay, here we go.
Yep, I'm done.
At 45% RPM, you can tell the crew chief to stop the airflow.
Yep, I'm done.
Verify the engine instruments. EGT, exhaust gas temperature between 220 and 420 Celsius. Fuel flow between 800 and 1400 pounds per hour. Idle RPM around 65%. Right boost pump 30 psi plus minus 5. Oil pressure between 12 and 50 psi. Check the hydraulic pressure. PC2 around 3000 psi. Utility around 2750. It will go up to 3000 as well when the left engine is started. Check all 4 pumps are operating above 1750 psi. If everything looks good, flip the right generator switch to on. Ensure RGen out and bus tie open lights go out. Time to check the spoiler actuator. Both hydraulic systems can operate both spoilers for added redundancy, but we need to verify that it works.
Ready.
Deflect the stick 1 inch to the left. Verify that the spoiler doesn't fully
partial
deflect
deflection.
and that it returns to a flush position when you return the stick to neutral.
Retracted.
If needed, now's the time to check the area refueling door and the refueling lights.
Door is open. Door is closed.
And now we repeat the process with the left engine. Once it's online, we switch the LGen switch to on and check the LGen out light goes off. Then we cycle the right generator switch and verify the RGen out switch illuminates. Make sure the bus tie open light remains off during the process. Now we can disconnect the external air and electric power, and Jester will begin the INS alignment process.
Are you ready for alignment? Okay. Which alignment do you want? Copy, full alignment. It's gonna be a little bit.
Before taxi. The engines are online. Time to set up all the systems. Check your speed genes, your anti-G suit, by pressing this button and verifying that the suit inflates. COM and nav equipment on. IFF to standby. Radar on. Make sure the off flag disappears. Then depress the knob to test the radar. The needle should jump to around 35 feet. With the bug at 0, the warning light is off. Keep it depressed and move the bug to 100 feet. That's higher than the altitude we are pretending to be at, so the warning light should illuminate. Move it back to 0 and the light should go out. Now release the test button and set it to the briefed altitude.
Temperature 62, 2.38, altimeter.
Set the altimeter.
2990.
Check the ATIS and set the pressure.
Runway 03 right.
Verify the gauge indicates field elevation plus minus 75 feet. Then place the SBC switch to reset core. Verify the needle doesn't move more than 25 feet. And then reset the altimeter. The standby flag should go away and the needle shouldn't move more than 75 feet. Also, the difference between the front and rear cockpits shouldn't exceed 75 feet. Cycle your speed brakes and have the crew chief check the movement for you.
Speed brakes out. Speed brakes in.
Slats flap switch to out. Verify the slats come out and the flaps go down. In the air, only the slats would come out in the middle position, but with weight on wheels, the flaps go down too to avoid accidents.
Flaps down.
Then slats override switch to in. Observe slats retract.
Slats in.
Override switch to norm. Verify slats come out again.
Slats out.
Okay, slats flaps to out and down. Then you can check your flight controls. Pitch trim to 3 units nose down. You can take off with less than that, like 1 unit nose down, but then at around 230 knots the jet will want to pitch up heavily, and you'll need to be prepared to counter it with nose down trim. And all that is happening at a very low altitude, so better set it to down 3. Check that you can pull the stick fully aft, unobstructed, and as you release it, it goes back smoothly. Check full left and right rudder movement. Check the ailerons and the ARI, aileron rudder interconnect. Aileron fully left, left spoiler up, right aileron down. Rudder moves slightly to the left automatically in order to help with the crazy adverse yaw in landing configuration. Then engage the yaw stab and observe the rudder moves further left. Then pull the emergency release handle on the stick and observe the rudder move toward neutral. Then repeat it to the right. Raise the flaps and slats, then check the ARI disengages automatically when the flaps are up by moving the stick left and right. observe no rudder movement. Engage each stab-og switch individually and make sure there is no movement of any control surface.
Ready. Fast and moving. No movement. No movement.
Turn on all stab-ogs and check the autopilot. AFCS, engage. Check that none of the control surfaces move more than half an inch. Move the stick abruptly and verify the AFCS disengages in case of emergency. Re-engage AFCS and engage altitude hold. Then pull the pedal switch and verify they both disengage and the caution light illuminates. Normally they should be repeated by the WISO as well, and then you can reset the caution light. Disengage all stab-og switches now. We'll only turn them back on as we taxi. If you know why, let me know in the comments. My guess would be to make sure there is no inadvertent movement of any control surfaces that could injure the ground crew, but I may be wrong. Okay, verify stab trim is down 3 and lower the flaps and slats. Have the crew chief verify the position.
Slats out. Flaps down.
Okay, controls are good. Set the gun sight as desired. Uncage the standby gyro. Turn on the raw and the radar screen and wait for Jester to tell you when the alignment is complete. He'll call cleared primary and sync. When that happens, move the reference system selector to prime and then move the spring-loaded compass knob to sync back here and hold it for a few seconds. The knob will jump back when you release it. This will manually synchronize the system. Alright, we are ready to taxi to the runway and take off.
Rudder. Wheel chocks out. And you're all set, sir. Have a safe flight and disconnect.
However, there are still a few checklists to go through as we taxi and then take the runway. This will be the topic of my next video, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. I hope you found this video interesting and helpful. Now go and practice and get ready for my MiG Killers campaign. Alright, see ya!